Hello, my name is Steve Berman, and I am presenting with Mamantha Shekharath. Today's topic is GE HealthCare performance baselining for reliability in SLES15. I'm a staff technical project manager with over 25 years experience with the Linux operating system. I work on the compute subsystems team, which is embedded in the platforms and solutions organization. Looking at the agenda, I will start with an introduction to GE HealthCare in the imaging business, a quick review of the history of operating system development and testing, and the CSS team's problem statement. Mamantha will then continue with presenting process development, escalations, and outcomes of performance baselining. Let's start with an overview of GE HealthCare. GE HealthCare is a leading global medical technology, pharmaceutical diagnostics, and digital solutions company. The imaging business provides tools that span the entire patient journey, from initial screening to patient monitoring and progression. GE HealthCare officially came into existence in 1926. In 2023, GE HealthCare became a standalone company. GE HealthCare today consists of four primary businesses. The imaging business has a large array of offerings, including oncology, cardiology, neurology, nuclear medicine, orthopedics, women's health, and pediatrics. GE HealthCare is a medical technology leader with over a century of innovation. The GE HealthCare install base is one of the largest in the world, and our portfolio is designed for the medical industry market, including AI analytics and pharmaceutical enhancements. The GE HealthCare portfolio includes end-to-end patient care, ensuring all phases of the patient journey are met. Our medical products integrate hardware and software components, which provide customers increased flexibility and improve patient outcomes. GE HealthCare imaging includes multimodal products in combination with digital platforms and AI. This combination enables customers access to precision diagnostics, precision therapy, and precision monitoring to deliver a quality experience for our customers and their patients. As a premier diagnostic and digital solutions provider, we touch the lives of over 1 billion patients globally. We are focused and passionate about our customers and patients, leading with a lean mindset to deliver the future of healthcare, a healthcare reimagined. So the CSS team is part of the imaging's platform and solutions organization. Our focus is to provide GE HealthCare imaging stakeholders common platforms that range from hardware to software components, including platform microservices for controlling, diagnosing, and provisioning compute hardware, and a common operating system. The CSS team incorporates imaging stakeholders' requirements across multiple platforms, developing roadmaps and common integration opportunities. The CSS team develops and orchestrates test APIs for analysis and qualification of common elements to the entirety of GE HealthCare's imaging products. The CSS team works with the entire spectrum of product development, including sourcing, suppliers, engineering, manufacturing, and repair operations. Now let's discuss operating system reliability testing. So the CSS team was formed in 2000 with a primary purpose to provide a custom Linux operating system for imaging products. During this development process, several requirements were defined and the need for operating system testing arose, including impacts to base operating system functionality and hardware obsolescence. The CSS team developed a custom toolkit for the operating system, which performed a multitude of computational and graphical benchmarks, as well as a stress feature. In 2015, the team implemented the Formatic Test Suite. This suite enabled the team to access industry-standard Linux benchmarks in a scalable framework to perform benchmarking on multiple hardware architectures simultaneously. The CSS team also collaborated with developers to implement a stress feature. This added to the suite's capabilities. However, stress testing alone for a reliable hardware operating system configuration did not provide any risk mitigations for possible performance regressions. So this led the team to the development of the process of performance baseline. The addition of the SLES15 distribution in 2019 enabled the imaging business to begin the process of providing both common hardware and software components across all imaging segments, thus a need for platforming. Partnering with SUSE also provided the ability for GE HealthCare to request support for inconsistencies with product integration into the SLES15 distribution. With all of imaging either implementing SLES15 or migrating from an earlier SLES distribution, the need for regression became apparent. This was primarily due to an overwhelming amount of requirements and test data for multiple hardware platforms and operating system releases. The CSS team determined that focusing on base operating system releases would be paramount to ensure key performance indicators, or KPIs, were determined and to maximize efficiencies in capturing performance regressions. The team also determined hardware configurations of a like architecture would be rolled up or indexed, further simplifying results for imaging stakeholders. The performance baseline process would mirror SLES15 service pack and quarterly releases and be included in the design history file, along with additional artifacts and shared with teams consuming the operating system. Regressions could then be escalated to SUSE through the support request process, with the goal to have these regressions addressed prior to future SUSE releases. One caveat to this process was the idea of baseline resetting. This might occur due to a specific security issue or bug, which would decrease the performance of all subsequent releases. For example, the RepBleed speculative execution attack on x86-64 and ARM processors in 2022. RepBleed mitigations require extensive changes to the system, which resulted in up to 39% performance loss on Linux distributions for affected processors. Mamantha will now discuss development of performance baselining, followed by escalations and results of the overall process thus far.
Hello all, I'm Mamta Chandrasekhara. I'm a staff software engineer at GE I have around 10 years of experience in development and testing on embedded systems on Linux OS. Today I'll be going over the details of OS performance baseline process done at GE to develop a performance baseline for OS releases, we began by analyzing the existing testing framework used by CSS team, which is for Onyx. This framework offered numerous advantages, one being open source. It's actively managed by huge community, incorporating latest industry standard Linux benchmarks. It also streamlined the process of test orchestration, automatic scheduling, and managing multiple test systems. Another advantage of using this framework was the ability to reuse the Phoronix tests used by CSS team for impact assessment of hardware obsolescence of components like CPU, GPU, storage, and network. One of the gap was lack of tests measuring performance of Linux kernel and its key packages. So additional Phoronix tests to measure OS performances were added into the new test suite. Another gap was lack of mechanism to provide a baseline index for OS performance across GHC imaging hardware architectures or platforms, for which we had to figure out a way of consolidating these test results from various test and hardware to identify patterns of performance regression. This prompted the need for development and automation of data analysis models for OS test results. The post-testing data analysis process for OS performance testing involves two stages, most of it being automated. In the first stage, we generate a color-coded summary report to quickly view the gain or loss in performance in current SBQ releases compared to its previous release. In the data collection stage, we use the formatics testing framework to automate execution of the predefined Phoronix test suite at scheduled intervals for each OS release across various hardware platforms. The results are then exported from the Phoronix server in a CSV format. At data preparation, we conduct initial analysis for any missing data or failed test and initiate reruns if needed. Then data consolidation is done using automation scripts to consolidate and normalize data against a base OS version, which is default um, current SPQU -1. This is a step where we also color code results indicating performance gain or loss. Example as seen in the diagram, red is a performance loss, usually which greater than 5%, and it will be flagged as an anomaly. Green is a performance gain greater than 5%. Yellow is a performance loss, but within 5%, so it's just monitored for further losses. Data summary report is just regrouping results from data consolidation step in a required format. Example, you can regroup it based on CPU architecture or the storage type used to run these tests. This helps in identifying patterns. Uh, the regression happens only on DDR4 RAM, not DDR5, or disk regressions are seen only on SATA drives and not NVMe. So this methodology has significantly enhanced our ability to track OS performance over time, easily identify patterns, and also view historic OS performance across all SPQU releases. While these consolidated reports are highly advantage for CSS OS development team, presenting it to a broader audience in a single slide remain challenging. So in the subsequent steps of enhancing data visualization technique involve two steps. One is organizing new test sets into specific categories like application kernel, storage, database, memory, etc. And second is creating Excel templates with tests based on these new categories. This allowed the automation script to pass the huge test results, organize results into distinct groups as defined by the template file, and then generate a normalized summary report. In this final stage of data analysis process, the importance was on creating graphs or heat maps in a single slide. So you can see how a test set, which includes 100 plus individual tests run over 15 different hardware configuration, is consolidated to a single graph to compare performance regression between two OS versions. Advantage of this is it's easy to see the percentage of uh, gain or loss in performance in particular category. This increases GHC team's confidence making decision on upgrading to the new OS releases. Also, this automation framework is highly flexible, enabling teams to expand and customize it to their specific testing requirements. Here are some example of the heat maps generated by CSS OS teams to share with other GESC sub teams during their OS technical design reviews. Uh, these still give us a directional indication and not the exact regression percentage that GHC applications would see. They still serve an early detection of regressions and also increases our confidence in accepting the new OS releases. Since we started performance baseline indexing process, we were able to find anomalies, that is performance regressions greater than 5%, and work with SUSE in identifying the root cause, fix the regression, and improve testing strategies both at GEHC and SUSE to track similar regressions in future. SUSE has been very collaborative during the development process of the performance baseline by GEHC. Uh, to name few, SUSE has actively contributed during test set selection process, providing feedback on the test chosen by GEHC. SUSE also matched the hardware configuration of their test system with GEHC config to fasten process of reproducing regression and also to avoid false negatives. SUSE shared notes from developers' discussions about regression, which helped us to understand internals of the test designs better and also the bottleneck for the regressions to for the regressions. Also, SUSE has shared its performance testing processes and also the tools used by them like OpenQA. So this has enabled us to refactor and significantly enhance our ability to identify regressions early, understand the root cause of these regressions, and also fix the regression before GHC product team starts using these OS OS releases. Here are some statistics on regressions identified since we started this process at GHC. We have around 20 open source Phoronix tests under OS performance test suite and over 100 individual tests considering all the test config variants. We were able to identify on an average 2 to 3 regressions in every SPQU release. The details of the test and regressions were communicated to SUSE by creating SRs, providing details of the system under test and details of the test where we were seeing regressions. Again, these are still directional indicators which show symptoms of a possible root cause. This is another example of how regression details are tracked over SPQU releases at GEHC. We capture the details of the test, its category, regression percentages, and the reasons for the test regressions explained by SUSE. And we track to make sure these regressions are fixed in subsequent SPQU releases and also doesn't resurface in future release. After establishing the process for performance baselining, we started on a collaborative effort with SUSE to formalize the performance baseline maintenance procedure. This involved creating clear and detailed instructions for activities to be performed both before and after OS releases. Um, this focused on ensuring consistency in maintaining performance baselines, outlining the pre-release and post-release activities such as monitoring backlogs, upgrading the test sets as needed, maintaining deployment infrastructure configurations both at GEHC and SUSE. This approach has enabled us to maintain high standards of performance tracking and ensure that each OS release meets our quality benchmarks. This is an example of performance regression heat map due to red pleat mitigation. We actually started the whole performance baselining process after the patch for red fleet mitigation addressing vulnerability was added to SLES15 SP for QU1, which had significant OS performance impact on hardware with Intel Skylake and Coffee Lake processors. This is an example showing if we had this process in place earlier, the red fleet mitigation impact on OS would have been identified during OS testing by CSS team, and GHC imaging product teams would be notified ahead of time about regressions. To conclude, the overall performance baselining process has helped us in many ways since we started, like because of the automation, the whole manual effort of consolidating and comparing these huge data has been reduced, and it also reduces errors associated with manual data processing, and it's scalable to handle any number of test sets or hardware platforms efficiently, and it's easy to rebase and create comparative normalized results for quick analysis between any two OS variants. So that's all about OS performance baseline indexing done at GEHC. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of SUSECon 2025. It has been an incredible experience collaborating with SUSE. Thank you.